There's a similar reason between people who advocate for a gold standard and people who advocate for Bitcoin. In fact, Bitcoin was invented during the economic crisis not as a get-rich scheme, but as a way to take away the government's ability to create money. In fact, the Federal Reserve is a quasi-government institution. It pumps money directly into the banking system. The banks sell government bonds to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve debits the banks with cash. So the government is basically turning government debt into money, and this creates false signals in the economic system. It makes people think that the economy is doing better than it really is, and this leads to bubbles. It leads to excessive financial speculation. This isn't saying that banks are inherently bad. Banks offer capital to productive businesses that create goods and services that we need. We need it to survive, and we need it to have the living standards that we enjoy today. What needs to be emphasized here is that monetary inflation it's not limited to just consumer goods prices. It affects the entire economy. It hurts workers the most because it encourages unproductive economic activity, and it doesn't do anything to promote productive economic activity. Activity that serves the needs of the consumers. Under capitalism, firms that serve the needs of consumers thrive. Any economic activity that does not serve the demands of the consumers, they go out of business. This is why under capitalism, too big to fail banks will fail. They'll just let them go out of business and let them be replaced with banks that funnel savings into productive firms. All the articles to this video will be in the description, so if anyone wants to learn more, I urge them to read it. Robert Triffin was a Belgian economist, and he described a phenomenon that is called Triffin's dilemma. He explained that because the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, it is used all around the world. In order for the world to have a supply of dollars, the United States has to keep going through deficit after deficit after deficit. This excerpt right here is from the article, Trade Deficit is really a capital account surplus. A capital account is basically investment into financial markets. This also includes U.S. treasuries. So if China buys U.S. bonds, they're creating a capital account surplus. And when they receive U.S. goods, the United States experiences a trade deficit. So the United States buys goods from China, and then China invests in the United States. This is actually a toxic relationship. As you see from this article, it says that the budget deficit and the trade deficit are often go together, and these are mirrored by capital account surpluses. And it also explains that the trade deficit is actually a symptom. It's not a problem. The trade deficit is not a problem that needs to be fixed. The trade deficit is a symptom of a problem. So going back to here, what happened in the 70s that was so bad that it hurt workers' pay and disconnected it from productivity?
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
Nixon, he took us off the gold standard, and he was the first one to institute price controls because he thought it was a good idea politically. Thanks a lot, Republicans. The function of prices is to basically tell entrepreneurs where to put resources. And it tells us what goods we need. So when you sabotage the price system with things like price controls, or even boosting the stock market, through stimulus, all you're doing is creating a bunch of errors in the economy. Currently, Donald Trump and Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, are buying bonds from corporations. This increases the value of corporate assets. This is not a good thing because it's not because of free market economics. It's because of the goddamn government. It's it's causing what Austrians would call a cluster of errors. People are going to invest in things that shouldn't be invested into because of distortions created by the government. This excerpt is from an article by David Stockman on Milton Friedman. His criticism of Milton Friedman was that Milton Friedman understood that the government shouldn't be fine-tuning the economy. But Milton Friedman believed that you could fine-tune mathematically the monetary system, the money supply. Austrians are against that idea. This is the problem with mainstream economists. They think that there's a good way to try to mathematically control the money supply. This differs from Austrians, who are mostly gold standard kind of people. If the free market is good, then the free market is good when it comes to the money supply, like Bitcoin or gold. There is an essay from 1969 from Alan Greenspan, of all people, about gold and economic freedom. You can't have a free market capitalist system without a free market monetary system, which would mean a return to gold as money. Here, this is an excerpt from the article. You can read the whole thing, Gold and Economic Freedom. He explains that the reason for the Great Depression was because Britain was losing too much gold due to their deficits. The United States wanted to help by lowering their own interest rates, so it would be comparatively lower and would help Britain. This actually helped things for a while, but it led to wild financial speculation and then a crash of the whole economy, the whole stock market, everything. Donald Trump and Jerome Powell are doing the exact same thing right now. They're buying corporate bonds. If Trump wants to stop it, he should tell them to stop it. So Donald Trump is complacent in all of this. So thanks a lot, Republicans. So I'll recommend 3 books. First, Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. He actually explains the boom and bust system, how depressions happen, in one of his chapters on how credit diverts production. The second would be the classic End the Fed by Ron Paul. The third will be The Real Crash by Peter Schiff. And optional, the fourth book would be David Stockman, The Great Deformation, The Corruption of Capitalism. This one is the biggest book. It's the longest book, so I'll just make that one more optional. That's the fourth book.
Recession or not, we're going to be joined by Art Laffer. He's Chief Investment Officer of Laffer Investments and former economic advisor to President Reagan. And Peter Schiff, he's president of Euro-Pacific Capital.
Dramatically, the United States economy has never been better shape. There is no tax increase coming in the next couple of years. Monetary policy is spectacular. We have freer trade than ever before. And not only that, but there are no incomes policies things here. I think Peter's just totally off base, and I don't think it's going to be. I mean, I just don't know where he's getting his stuff.
Well, one of us is off base, but it's definitely not me. I mean, it's not wealth that's increased in the last few years. We haven't increased our productive capacity. All that's increased is the paper values of our stocks and real estate. But that's not real wealth, no more than the NASDAQ was wealth. When you see the stock market come down and the real estate bubble burst, all that phony wealth is going to evaporate. And all that's going to be left is all the debt that we accumulated to foreigners.
Peter, I'm going to take a bet with you on this one. I'll bet you a penny on this one that if you'll sign a letter saying that if you're wrong, you'll sign a letter that you were wrong to me in this, but you're just way off base. There is.
Alan Greenspan also issued warnings. But I was stunned by reading a statement you made in the Banking Committee on September 10th, 2003. In fact, I reprinted the whole thing in my book. I want Americans who hear leaders saying every day, we could have never seen this coming. This was a shock. How did this happen? I want to read what you said 5 years before the collapse. The special privileges granted to Fannie and Freddie have distorted the housing market by allowing them to attract capital that they could not attract under pure market conditions. Like all artificially created bubbles, the boom in housing prices cannot last forever. When housing prices fall, homeowners will experience difficulty as their equity is wiped out. Furthermore, the holders of the mortgage debt will also have a loss. These losses will be greater than they would have otherwise been had government policy not actively encouraged overinvesting in housing. And you go on to say, because so many people will invest in housing, the damage will be catastrophic. Congressman, how could it be that you knew this on the banking committee in 2003 and nobody else did until after the collapse?
Well, I would think the easiest explanation is Washington, D.C. is permeated by Keynesian economic thinking. Very few even know the name Austrian economics and understand the business cycle. I was concerned about the building of the bubble since 1971 when gold was delinked from the dollar.